So we're not at the stage with this where I'm wondering what our intro is. I'm just trying to figure out if we have an intro. Like, I don't remember what we did. All I know, like, there's the poorly recorded
You
piano.
did like the thing that some podcasts do where they take a clip of just like random chatter and you put it before
Well,
that, and then
yes,
you did
no. If
music and then
I'm saying this again partially because if there's nothing interesting in the rest of the episode, this will be bad. Oh God. So this again. Last time we tried in August to record an episode a week after the last one, and it was a dumpster fire, and we cut it 30 minutes through and didn't return to the idea for many months thereafter, the better part of a year. So this time I have a guest, a classmate of mine, Marshmallow, who also pays attention to politics to a concerning degree, and so she'll be here to add some diversity to this and more opinions.
yes, I guess I am a little bit
Yep.
of diversity, a little sprinkle.
Yes. Yeah, so let's just start with the news since the last episode, and this time it's not going to be as bad. But while I was planning this episode, I remembered that we didn't talk about the war, the withdrawal from Afghanistan in the last one, so that's something I missed. Any other news since the last episode you'd like to add?
News since the last episode. Not really things that we're not already gonna talk about.
Yeah, we have. We already have the January 6th commission vote, the jobs plan negotiations.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think the anniversary of George Floyd's murder.
Yes.
Yeah,
There's also
the deadline for the police reform negotiations was passed this week, I believe. And they're still working on that. The informal deadline for the jobs plan negotiations has also passed this week, or really passed like tomorrow or something, or yesterday. I don't know. Jobs.
I'm sure there was much more.
Yeah, no, there was. Biden released his budget. We'll be talking about some other things. Let's talk about the American Jobs Plan. Great. So the negotiations are continuing. Have you been following that?
Ish. From what I can tell, and this might be a bad opinion since I read this article a couple days ago, he should go for reconciliation and stop trying to be bipartisan because he's going to die down on the climate, and we don't have time for that, and we really need some climate something. So.
Yeah, that is true. I was like more recently, what's happened is that they've been like sort of negotiating with a group led by Senator Shelley Moore Capito, who was not one of the senators to vote for the January 6th commission or convicting Trump. Very moderate and bipartisan she is. I don't remember the last time she did vote for something that was actually a party line Democratic priority. But they've been like theoretically negotiating and like very slightly changing their offers through either like changing how they're accounting it or shaving small amounts off of it in the case of Biden, or adding adding very small concessions in the case of Republicans. At this point, it politically benefits both of them to pretend to be negotiating, but in reality, it looks very unlikely that anything will come of it. That is what they should do, but Joe Manchin isn't happy yet. And in fact, this is breaking news. Insert soap opera music here. There are actually another bipartisan group that's going to try and negotiate with the White House on this now. If the other one fails, I think like Joe Manchin's behind. I don't remember anything else about it, but basically the negotiations are going to keep going, and they're supposed to be like wrapped up by now, hopefully, at least with the Republicans. So that's great. Isn't that amazing? So fun.
Really? Not really. Oh
God. So next, let's do an update on the situation with global vaccinations and the spread of COVID in the developing world, and many places aren't the U.S. because the Biden administration has been surprisingly competent, and Boris Johnson is still a real person.
There's pretty much not, I mean, we should have been giving more vaccines to the world. I mean, right now, I think LA County showed that, what is it, by like the end of the month, or do they already have like more vaccines than people who want it? Like, the world matters, and we've been stocking way too much on them, and we have too many vaccines per citizens, and the biggest blockade of like getting the entire United States vaccinated is vaccine hesitancy. It's not vaccine access. I'm not saying that vaccine access isn't like a problem in places. I'm just saying that like it is a much bigger problem in the global world, and we should be giving more to help that, because if this virus, mutates, then we're in trouble. But even not, like, we shouldn't, like, it's not okay to let India die. I don't know, it's not good.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. It's very bad. They did like some, I think, mostly symbolic at this point stuff on patents, which is good.
Yeah, and it's
It's
not
good except
just
for
America, but also it's more important for America. I mean, it's most of the rich countries that are doing this, but like, if America really wants to get back on the quote unquote like wall on the international scale and have such an international presence, then it's gonna need to step up and do things like donate a lot of vaccines to countries who need it, because, like, or countries aren't gonna trust it. If Biden really wants to, return back to how America used to be seen pre-Trump, then he's
what if
going to
we
need to
invaded
take
Angola
lead.
instead?
Hmm?
But what if we invaded Angola instead?
That would be a bad idea. Let's
That's
not do
not a thing
that.
that's actually happening, by the way, to my knowledge.
Yeah.
The next topic is the budget. So I don't really understand how budgets works. I know that in budget reconciliation, there's a budget resolution, and I know that's not the same thing as the appropriations process. I don't really understand what discretionary spending is, but I have a reason to go through this. Um, the plan apparently, yeah, it's like $6 trillion budget. It's very large. A few things. This includes like economic projections or something. So you can see in it that they're expecting a sort of slower growth. I have a suspicion that this might be part of them under promising and over delivering on things
Is this
where
a $6 trillion budget?
yeah,
Just
bad.
okay, just making sure I got
It
the right one.
it's like where like maybe their projections aren't as like, I'm not saying that they're like deliberately doing that, but like they might be being less optimistic, like not deliberately that optimistic, so that it can be realistic. I don't know. That would be giving them, or maybe they're just expecting a sluggish growth like after the last recession, which wasn't that long ago, because neoliberalism has failed us. And the only solution to that is filibuster reform. So anyway, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the numbers there. Maybe they're just predicting less fast growth, and either way, they're also, I think, expecting some inflation. So in other words, Republicans have a lot to attack here, but that's just sort of how it is with the economy. The economy is complicated, and it's $6 trillion. The American Jobs Plan is $2.3 trillion. It's part of, or 2.25. It's part of that. Also part of it's the American Families Plan. I don't know why they're part of it. Don't ask me. It also has 1.5 trillion or something in discretionary spending, and those numbers don't add up. But I'm going off an NPR page on this because I don't understand budgets. It also predicts the deficit is going to grow a lot. And right now it's like the budget deficit for 2022 is 1.8 trillion under this, and it's going to keep growing, even though we're raising a lot of taxes. So that's all fun. The real reason I wanted to share, well, first of all, what are your opinions of that? And then I have a statement from Mitch McConnell that I really love.
Please read the statement.
Okay, so let's see. I'm just gonna go through all of this. Now we know. Wait, can I do a Mitch McConnell voice? I can't. But
Good luck.
now
I'll support you in your efforts, but
no, I can't. I'm not going to. Now we know why the administration tried to bury their budget announcement on Friday before a holiday weekend. President Biden's proposal would drown American families in debt, deficits, and inflation. Even after the massive tax hike Democrats want to force on the American people, there's still the government running $1 trillion trillion plus dollar deficits every year. Democrats want to borrow and spend on a scale that America has not seen since we had to fight and win World War II. Remember when Trump was the world's wartime president, Mitch McConnell doesn't, our debt burden would break all records, eclipsing even the 1940s because inflation and stuff. I don't know if they adjusted for inflation. I don't trust them to do so. And for what? A stronger national defense to compete with China? No, this budget would actually cut funding for our armed forces after inflation and leave us less safe. Generational new public works? No, there's no 21st century equivalent. This is great. Of a Hoover Dam or the interstate highway system to make Americans proud. It's amazing how little all this taxing, printing, and borrowing would actually net American families. The money would just disappear into a million mediocre socialist daydreams from electric work discouraging welfare programs to Washington-directed child care plans to put politicians' thumbs on the scale of family decisions. It keeps going for a long time. Oh boy, Americans deliver better. This is later on it. Americans deserve better. Senate Republicans just sent President Biden a nearly $1 trillion proposal to fund real infrastructure needs and bipartisanship. So half of this is for Joe Biden. No, half of this is for Joe Manchin, and half of this is Mitch McConnell's old and dumb and bad. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree.
I love that. I love that Hoover Dam part so much. It's like
what?
We already have the Hoover Dam. That's the point. Like, what do you want? Another interstate highway? Like, if you want another interstate highway system that's designed solely to transfer avocado toast to reduce traffic or something, is that like your idea of the socialist left daydream that you like? Like, what are you asking for here? You'd hate it even more if there was such a thing. And
it's the idea
not to say that there won't be.
Of Biden like helping people's lives.
Yeah, no, government-directed childcare, like childcare plans, there's a way, like Sarah Palin, like with death panels or something. There's a way to make people scared of that sort of stuff. But Mitch McConnell is not the kind of person who can do that. Like government-directed childcare plans, like they would put politicians' thumbs on a scale of family decisions. Like I don't know who that's meant for.
I do not know either. I think I might be meant for his fellow Republican elitists to like know that they're not going to stand for this, like all this taxing.
I mean, yeah, that's the dog whistle. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, they also mentioned new taxes on the American people. So I guess the American people are just like people making, what's it, like above $400,000 a year.
That's all of us.
Mitch McConnell doesn't think you're a person. Anyway, so yeah, that's the budget. Yeah, let's go now to immigration. So I don't follow immigration, but you do follow immigration, which is probably which is pretty much why I wanted you on here. So I have no idea what you should talk about now, but talk about immigration, please.
Okay. There's a lot. There's actually immigration is thankfully like there is a lot of news about immigration, as there always is, but there's less news, and that's a good thing, I think.
Oh, by the way, no, I'm not talking about the last week. Like all of the immigration, we've never talked
all
about
of the immigration from like
all
this year.
All of it. I don't care.
I'm gonna start. Do I have a time limit of how much I can talk?
No, there's no time limit.
All right. I'm gonna start. I'm good about a month. February, I think. So, President Biden, if you didn't know, Donald Trump essentially stopped most immigration. And coming in here for COVID, or at least the COVID was the excuse. It was also because he's Donald Trump and doesn't like immigrants. Biden came into office and said that it was immoral to kick back unaccompanied minors, who are minors, usually young teenagers, but sometimes kids and sometimes older teenagers, who come without their parents, but often do have family in the United States. and they come seeking asylum. So he said that it would be immoral to just kick them back like they have done with everybody else. So instead, we are going to shelter them and allow them in eventually. This created just, I don't know, insanity. Like, the system, Customs and Border Patrol, was very overwhelmed.
Are you going to call it a crisis? Are you going to call it a crisis? Or are you going to call it a crisis?
I think it probably was a crisis.
Oh my God. Marshmallow breaks with Democrats to slam Biden response to immigration disaster at border.
But Biden did a lot. CPS, Customs and Border Patrol, is not supposed to hold unaccompanied minors for more than 72 hours in their shelters because it's just dangerous. They're not equipped to it. It's bad. At one point of time, and I'm going to have to double check, they were spending, I think, like 200 hours in Customs and Border Patrol, which is like way over the limit. Maybe it was 102 hours. That's not like, I know those are very different, but they were spending a lot more time in Customs and Border Patrol than they should have been. While they were waiting to go to HHS, Health and Human Services, who would match them with different like uncles and aunts and foster parents and those types of people who are waiting in the United States. Thank God, recently, a lot more kids have been able to go to HHS more quickly. So I think now the unaccompanied minors, the average time spent in CPS for unaccompanied minors is less than 72 hours, I think now, which is good. And there has been a slight drop, which is also good. And we are able to get them into HHS and then into whoever is waiting for them a lot quicker. But for a while, that just wasn't happening. And everything was just like in chaos. Because of COVID restrictions, you couldn't have like a certain number of beds in one room. So they had almost like half the amount of beds that they needed. And so there was just like kids sleeping on the floor and kids sleeping outside. It was a mess. And they opened up a bunch of facilities to hold them. They opened a bunch of like former military like places. And I think at once like a SpaceX unit, or maybe it was a NASA unit that they opened up. And that has been dying down. Also, of course, whenever you're having sort of this type of chaos and inflection at one time, there are all going to be reports of physical and sexual abuse at these facilities because it's just not safe. This has also gone down, which is good, and I'm glad. It's still not great, but it's better. But that being said, we're still expelling most other migrants who aren't unaccompanied minors, and that could be one reason we're seeing a lot of unaccompanied minors. If they're the only ones allowed in, their parents aren't going to come. And we have started to open temporary visas called, give me a second, temporary protected status under Burma. That's super controversial because temporary protected status can often like get people into sort of a cycle of just not being fully citizens and then doing this, and it's a big hassle, and people do not like temporary protective status, but they are opening a lot more of that, which I think is better than just not allowing anyone in, but it's still not great. And then of course there was Remain in Mexico that Trump put in from the Trump administration, which meant that instead of waiting for asylum here in the United States, you had to wait in Mexico. And that is starting to be released, and we're allowing some of those people in, but they're not new people. And some of these people, also because of Title 42, which is a different thing that allows, it's essentially like a COVID, it's not a law, it's like a COVID thing that under emergencies, the president has the ability to enact certain things. Give me 1 second.
Just put in chat, this is great, keep going.
Title 42. What is Title 42? Title 42 is not a law. It's not any type of thing like that. It's just sort of a broad power that the president has to close the border, essentially, under emergencies, which is what Trump did for COVID. So because of Title 42 and Remain in Mexico, some of these people have been staying in Mexico for like 2 years, and we are finally allowing some of those guys in. But we're not allowing new people in. And according to this NPR thing that just came out, because basically a new report comes out every month. More than
Oh God, I think you were talking faster when I was in the filibuster video. We should have you more often. That was amazing.
I could do that again, but a lot slower if you want.
No, don't. Absolutely not. I will not allow that.
Also, by the way, if you want to follow like real immigration reporters who really specialize in this, there's like a lot of great ones. I forgot her name from the CNN. I will. CNN is great, and also Dara Lind from ProPublica.
Okay.
Those are the two main ones.
Yes, and speaking of Dara Lind, who is not from Vox, but I only listen to her on the Weeds. So basically, speaking of that, Ezra Klein lives in San Francisco, not New York. I was informed by you in the previous episode. Again, you were the only person to listen to the previous episode, to my knowledge. Anyway, on immigration, I think that the immigration is good. I'm surprised to learn that the emergency that Trump used was a real emergency. Perhaps during the COVID, perhaps it was the COVID pandemic, and that's just what everybody assumed the emergency was. But actually, in his head, he thought that the emergency he was responding to was Obamagate. Just putting that out there. Anyway, I think.
You want my opinions? Because that's just like the recap of what happened.
Oh, I mean, yeah. If you have opinions, we can keep going for this.
I don't know. My opinions are that this system is very broken, which is not a thing that I talked about in the recap.
Actually, no, I do have something to say here. I'll just, if I can just cut in. I think the real problem here is also the filibuster, which means I get to talk for 20 minutes as well. What's really happened here is that Congress has failed to pass any meaningful immigration reform in decades, and they've left a broken system that has messed up our immigration for a very long time in place. I believe the original impetus for creating like a more organized U.S. immigration system is basically racism, and yeah, that continues to be. I mean, yeah. Well, wait, sorry. That it was basically racism, and it's. I mean, like, it's better than that now. Obviously, there aren't like quotas for ethnicities and stuff. Like, it's not like openly like that, but like it's still an incredibly out of date system that fails many people, and that causes our massive amount of illegal immigration, and also. It also makes it so that the only solution is filibuster reform, and the president still get blamed for it. And so the real answer is that Joe Manchin is secretly prime minister, and he's been running the government in a conspiracy.
As much I would like to leave it off on that note, I just want to, like, an important point is that you'll hear Biden a lot. I don't know if you exist out there. I don't know who's going to listen to this. But if you do listen to this, you'll hear Biden a lot talk about, like, caps on asylum and how he's raised them. And he has raised them. First of all, he hasn't raised them at all since they've been at the height. He's raised them more than, like, Trump, but that's kind of a low bar.
Yeah, no, that was one thing that happened.
But asylum seekers haven't actually come in. Even though he has raised the cap, the amount of asylum seekers coming in or being allowed in still hasn't risen. So
I think he said that he'd allow. I think he said that he would have a goal to allow more people in or something. It's
no, he did officially raise the cap.
The Biden administration side of the story is that they realized that the initial promises that they had made weren't realistic because Trump had destroyed the immigration system so much.
Oh yeah,
it's probably true to an extent.
He really did just pummel it. Like there's also so many little ways he destroyed it.
I think there's been some reporting, but there were also political concerns involved. So it's like it's a few factors there, but he got a lot of criticism for that. So eventually he did raise the numbers more.
He did raise it. I'm just saying you got to do more than raise it because like you can raise the cap all you want, but if you're not allowing people in.
No, he hasn't done enough on that.
Yeah. Anyways, what's the next topic?
So to start, I'm going to do filibuster rant part 2, basically, which is the January 6th commission vote. What are your thoughts of the January 6th commission vote? in the
I
Senate?
did not. The actual like vote part and how it progressed, I got solely from you. But the rest of it, I mean, I I don't know. It didn't go very well. The filibuster got in the way. Nothing surprising happened, from my knowledge. Did something surprising happen in your
Actually,
opinion?
yes. No, something surprising did happen. Um, yeah. So what happened that with that, I'll just say for the benefit of anybody who wasn't paying attention to this, because it's been very undercovered, and as far as I'm aware, it should be like specifically around like say like November 2022, like the first few weeks of that last like October as well, probably. It should be the biggest story what this vote was. And I think anything short of that is very much undercovering it and partisan bias, probably treason. So so the January 6th Commission, the original proposal for it was modeled on the 9/11 Commission, but more partisan towards Democrats, which is to say reality. But Kevin McCarthy, the House Minority Leader who we talked about in the previous episode, um, sent one of his members, a more moderate member of his, to negotiate with Nancy Pelosi on it, and with some demands, and most of them were actually met, and they reached a deal. But Kevin McCarthy didn't think that they would reach a deal because he believes too much of his own lies about the Democrats, and so he threw John Katko, it was, under the bus. Refused to accept the deal. The Senate Republicans followed later, and so now the bipartisan independent commission to investigate the insurrection. I don't think I actually said what this bill was. I just launched into a rant about the negotiations
Yes.
for it.
If I'm not mistaken, the vote was 54 to 35, right?
Yes, no, that was the Senate vote, and like 30 something House members also defected to support it. So basically, yeah, the Republicans, because it was a deal that was made with the Republican designee for it, they had to like scramble to get all of their to get their party line vote in order so they could claim it was a partisan bill, and they mostly succeeded. In the Senate, they actually Susan Collins got it negotiated down even further. And much to Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema's shock and fury, only a much higher than expected 7 Republicans ended up supporting it, one of whom was not there for the vote. And in fact, 11 senators weren't there for the vote. So the final total was 54 to 35, which would be majority, would be comfortably passing on a bipartisan basis. But we have the Senate filibuster with the 60 vote requirement. So it did not, and it's probably dead now. And now it's going to have to be a partisan commission because there's no way to get an independent commission without legislation, and it's not budget reconciliation eligible. So that was fun. Joe Manchin could not find his 10 good Republicans. There's an amazing Washington Post piece that everybody should read about the story of Joe Manchin and the 10 good Republicans. It's very ironic.
I think it's going to encourage him maybe for more reform on the filibuster,
Yes, that's the
loosening
hope.
his opinions.
Yeah, this is just filibuster rant part 2. I sincerely apologize. But
Everything is filibuster
yeah,
rant part 2.
at the very least, like the problem is they said he wouldn't vote to weaken the filibuster. But if you could, if I have a small amount of hope that he could be convinced to frame reducing the threshold to like 55 or something as strengthening the filibuster, which there's a decent argument it could do. Like you can make that it's a bit like it would be a bit of a bent out shaped way to put it, but you could say that. And that's something I could see him getting behind if he wasn't so insane, but he might be so insane. So we'll have to see. There are more. This was actually the first filibuster because other stuff was through budget reconciliation or hasn't been gotten up yet. First thing blocked of this Congress, and there's probably more to come. So that's fun. What are your opinions on all of that?
I don't have much to add. As I told you before, I mean, it was a mess, and it was the moderates' fault as usual. I don't think anything's going to come of it, unfortunately. I think we're going to be stuck in a spiral.
Well, no, the thing about this one is that it really wasn't the moderates' fault. The bill really was bipartisan, and it wasn't like they did anything to block it other than not eliminating the
If it wasn't
filibuster.
bipartisan
In
enough,
fact,
right?
the moderates actually did fairly well with this bill. Like they didn't expect that they didn't expect to have nearly as much Republican support as they ended up having. People were saying like maybe like 2 or 3 Republicans at most would support it, and 7 did, the same amount as support convicting Trump after the insurrection of the second impeachment trial. Although it was a slightly different group. So like there are some Republicans who will act against probably their political interests for bipartisanship, and but it just isn't 10, and only on the most obvious of issues, like on things that are incredibly important, like the jobs plan or voting rights. You aren't getting anybody really. Yeah. Do you have any? Do you still have nothing to add? Okay. Great.
Well, any other ideas on this?
No, I think that's about all for this great mini episode that we're doing here.
Well, this
Yeah,
was, I would like to say, fun.
Yeah, we just talked past each other for what's in reality has been, I think, about like 35 minutes or so.
Yep.
Who knows what this will end up being, but I've enjoyed this experience somewhat. There is some valuable stuff here. It'll probably sound better once I edit it.
Am I going to be allowed back on the podcast?
Yes. It would be worse if I didn't have somebody else on here. There's no way this would have worked. So thank you very much for coming on.
You need to have a panel. You need to get a couple people on it.
Wait, how would that help at all?
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah. So thanks so much for coming on. Anybody?
Thank you for having me. This was
listening?
an interesting experience.
Yes. Anybody else who's listening to this? Thank you. I apologize, but maybe not.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, I hope I didn't.
I'm sorry to the audience, not you. But
good. Okay. So anyway, yeah, that's it.
Can we stop recording now?
Wait, no, I just have one more thing. Actually, I guess 2 more things. Well, okay. First of all, I didn't get this in anywhere, and I'm gonna like cut this somewhere else, like after the outro or something. But first, I didn't get this in anywhere. But you have told me outside of this that you thought that the correct answer was Walter Cronkite.
Yes,
I just like to share that with the world. It's wrong. And also, I think we've learned today that you talk faster than me, but I interrupt with unrelated things more. I'm not sure which of us is better for the purpose of this.